don't even understand what they're feeling at that moment. And also they just don't want to feel misunderstood. What do you think should be done at that point? Maybe you could go to Prudence.
Well, okay, first of all, I even forgot to say I'm bipolar. But I have bipolar 2 and anxiety disorder and PTSD. And now that's coming out, my friend. The struggle, yeah. The struggle, yes, because you feel like you'll be misunderstood, just as you've said. And you know, our parents' generation are resistant to change. That's something I learned. So the fact that we're starting to embrace mental health is a sign of change. And it gets hard if you don't have understanding parents or guardians or whoever is your caregiver. So on the topic of coming out, I think someone just really needs support, whether from your friends, whoever you trust. Because you know, you just don't tell everyone, oh, so I think I'm depressed, or I feel like dying, or you know, the person you tell will help you come to the open where you at least probably get professional help. Yeah. Yeah.
So do you mind like maybe sharing your story if you don't mind?
I don't mind. So my story I started with just depression. Yeah, bipolar has depression and hypomania or mania. Now, being bipolar 2 means I have hypomania and depression. Anyway, I was depressed for a while. I've been depressed for a while, but I just never knew it until this one time where I started cutting myself and I wanted to jump off a roof. And I was like, I ran away from home. Yeah, I ran away from home. But when I went to ask a doctor for some antacids because I was really stressed, I was told you're actually depressed and you need professional help. Then I stayed for a while. Then I eventually started going for therapy. I wasn't getting any better. My symptoms were becoming worse. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't talking to anyone. It's a bit tough. Eventually, I was admitted for major depressive disorder. Then I came out, I was still feeling suicidal. I'd actually attempted suicide before I was admitted. I attempted suicide, then I was admitted. Then after admission, I went back to school, but things aren't the same. I still wasn't okay. I was still cutting myself. Then I resumed therapy. Therapy wasn't helping, so I quit. I quit therapy. Like I just stopped in the middle, and I was like, it's not helping me, so I'm leaving, guys. That's what I'm doing. I'm leaving. I stopped going for therapy. It got to a point where I wasn't in good terms with my caregiver at the time. And eventually I went to see another psychiatrist who wanted me to be admitted because I was showing signs of I was a bit suicidal at the time. I won't lie, I was. Actually, now it was Dr. Kigamwa. He was one of the panelists yesterday. He's my psychiatrist. So he told me he needs to admit me, and that's when he said, you are bipolar. But I was saying, no, I'm not bipolar, I'm just depressed. And there's nothing you didn't tell me. So I denied it, I denied. Then I was admitted. That time it was during my exams. And a day before I was admitted, It was hard. I had already planned how I was going to die, how, I'd planned everything. I won't give you the details because I don't want to give someone ideas, but I'd already planned everything, and part of me wanted to go through with it. Then the other part of me was saying, you're going to get help after this, so just vumilia too. You'll get there, you'll get the help that you need. Just so I had medication at the time, so I took the medication and knocked out. Because since I have insomnia, I have sleeping medication. So I knocked out and I didn't do anything that night. Then I went and finished my exams the next day. Then I was admitted soon afterwards. Then I was admitted for 19 days at Avenue Hospital. Now time was also, we're dealing with bipolar plus PTSD and a bit of anxiety. That's why. But I was still denying I have bipolar. I was just saying I'm depressed and that's it. Then this year, I was depressed. The reason for my depression had been taken back to some toxic environment, which wasn't good for me. And eventually, I attempted suicide again. But before that, the previous day, the doctor had told me I need to admit you because I had shown both hypomania and depression at the same time. It usually is so risky when someone shows the mixed part instead of just one. So the doctor was concerned and he said, I need to admit you. So my mom didn't take it as well as I expected. I told her I need to be admitted and she asked me, what's so special that you need admission? And that hurt me, to be honest, it really did. But eventually they talked to the doctor. We fought for some time. Things are said, things which were really mean are said. And that night I took 49 pills and nothing happened to me. I woke up early. I was okay. I was standing. I was doing everything. So a friend of mine came for me and took me to hospital. Then I stayed there. Now that's when I finally admitted to myself that I'm actually bipolar. It finally dawned on me and I said, okay, now how do we move on from here? Because the sooner you accept that you have a problem and you need help, the better it is for you. At that point, okay. So I think for me, it feels like you just moved a step ahead. You start with denial, then acceptance. So slowly, but the minute you accept that you actually need help, things get better. I finally accepted that I'm bipolar, and I was admitted for 23 days. Yeah, 23 days. Then I went back home. I've been struggling. Sometimes, some days are okay. Some days I'm hypomanic as hell. Some days I'm depressed. Recently, I was really anxious. I had an anxiety attack. I couldn't move. I couldn't talk. I had to be rushed to hospital. That was on Tuesday, actually, this week. It was really tough. And yeah, I hadn't had any medication for a week. Now, before Tuesday, I hadn't slept for 2 days because I didn't have medication. I was hypomanic. I was anxious. I showered and I became depressed. Like it was just crazy. So right now I have my medication and I'm in a different environment. So I'm just taking it at a time. That's basically the story. Yeah.
Your story is so inspiring. I love the way you finally accepted and on your journey to where you want to be your destination. So during this period, and from the beginning to now, what would you want different, done different, not only by maybe, what would you wish done different, maybe by the society, by us? What would you wish done different?
I can say, let me tell you, my family is resistant to this whole mental health thing. The first time I was admitted, I was discharged by the doctor, yet I wasn't fit to be discharged. I was still suicidal. And normally, if a patient is still suicidal, if they're still under suicide watch, you're not meant to release them out there. Because out there now, they'll go find everything and, they can use. So I was discharged, and my family didn't want me to go back because they said it was a sign of weakness. So now those were my aunts speaking. My uncle said, there are people out there who have issues bigger than you. You don't need to go there. I don't know what. Yet all that time I'd been going for therapy and it wasn't helping. So for me, the admission was a different route, a different approach to get me better. But generally, my family is against this whole mental health, and I'd really be happy if they were for it, because I've run away from home once, okay, twice, because of mental health, because my mom is not for mental health, so is my stepdad. They're not for it. My stepdad actually told me that I'm pretending to be bipolar. You get to hear some of these things and they really bring you down, especially when you're not okay. And it's so genuine because you don't even understand what's going on with yourself. You just, your mind is just taking you to places, making you do things. You're not sure what's going on. You can't, like what I really wish is for my family to be more accepting than they are right now. Really accepting. Yeah, because people say, your family, that that your day ones are your ride or die. But I can't say the same thing. My friends are, when I was admitted in May this year, none of my family members came to see me. Just one aunt of mine, and she lives all the way in Nakuru. So she came all the way from Nakuru. And that time, Kwanzaa, it was those times where there were barriers for Nairobi County in Mombasa because of COVID. She came all the way and she saw me. Yet my relatives in Nairobi, my own mother wasn't coming to see me. So I'd really wish that would have been different. Yeah.
That's a touching story. And I would pose another question for Lennah. So touching on parents are just, it's very hard to explain to them and tell them that you're going through this and that. And it's okay because their generation is quite different and they maybe don't relate and understand what you're going through. You might tell them and they're like, where were you? What haulipi fee? Kuna watu wako na mashida mingi kukulika, what's wrong with you? So what do you think, how can we open up to our parents? How can we even start by telling them? And what would you wish parents would do different from what they're doing right now, Lennah?
I'm glad Prudence has brought up the idea of parents not embracing mental health. We need to understand our parents, vitu kubwa kwao ni, any big issues that need to stress you is finding money for supper, maybe finding money for school fees. If you're not doing that, if you don't have to think about that, you shouldn't be stressing over anything. That is their mentality. So I think the first step would be, as you approach them, you do what? You be sure ukue unajua bado that's their mentality, and watch out for any reaction from them. But then she's also mentioned her aunt who traveled all the way from Nakuru. So we have to acknowledge that there are people closer to our parents that are actually embracing mental health, that are actually embracing the fact that this is a thing. People can be depressed for other things apart from what they think should be depressing you. So I think talking to maybe she's actually blessed. She has an aunt who I presume by the time the aunt traveled all the way from Nakuru with the barriers to Nairobi, this is someone who understands her, someone who understands the place that she's at. So approaching these aunties and asking them to talk to our parents, I think would be a great step to approaching them. And then something else, it's not a must that our parents, it's not a must that your parents do what? Understand you. If you've tried talking to them and they seem not to understand where you're coming from, I would say just leave them, because there are other people out here who are willing to help. You know, the more you keep pushing them to understand you, the more you keep arguing with them, the more you keep trying to show them this and that, and then they are still resistant. I feel like that one is adding onto your pressure. That one is making you feel like there really is no one out here to help you. So just do your bit, and if you feel like they are not for it, just leave them. Keep your distance. Yeah, just keep your distance from them. Eventually they'll come around, but what matters is your mental health. So if talking to them and they are not willing to change, leave them. Focus on people that are willing to help you. Yeah.
And you know, this period where there's this pandemic, we've always been around family, and they've always been around us. So when you're in that situation and you can't speak out to them, you can't tell them what you're going through, and you're with them from morning to evening, and there's curfew, and they're just around you. So how do you deal with family members? You can't speak to them, and they can't help you, and you're always around them, especially during the pandemic, COVID. We've always been at home. So how can you handle that situation?
Oh, okay. So this is something I actually went through. Not long ago. I felt I am constantly around my parents, and hey, kuna vile hatusikilizani. So I asked for permission from them. Because they are my parents, whether we need to respect our parents, in as much as their thoughts don't align with ours, we need to respect them. So I asked for permission and told them I need to take a break. So I left home and went to visit my friends, to just chill with my friends for a week. That one actually helped me. But then I understand not all parents will be willing to let you out, especially in such a pandemic. And in that case, honestly, we can't do much. But then I thank God for this pandemic, because we have had so many hotline numbers coming up. We have had so many online mentor resources coming up. So we could check out some, and these are resources that offer help on the instant. Like there's one I know of, 7 Caps. So you log into 7 Caps, you create an account, and then they have listeners. People are willing to listen to you, because ukimefika your point, you just want someone to listen to you. So these people have they offer listeners at a free cost, and you can actually choose who you want to listen, who you want your listener to be. But then something else I would actually want to highlight is the fact that when you want to open up, oftentimes you just want to release the emotions that are in you, not necessarily to anyone. You just want to release those emotions. And now this is where ideas like journaling come in. When you feel you're done, you want to let out your emotions, you could try journaling. Or you could even create a WhatsApp group where you're the only participant, and then you send a voice note. So when you feel you're very frustrated, you're very angry, you just go into that WhatsApp group where you're the only participant and let out your emotions via that voice note. You will feel better. That one might help you to move at least 2 or 3 more days. Yeah. But yeah, I think I'd say that.
Okay, that's a nice idea, especially for the WhatsApp group. Maybe we could try that when you're at our lowest point. So my question is to Mrs. Florence about parents. So why are parents so cold when you tell them about, yesterday when we had our meeting, we were told that in our mother tongue, mental disorder, it's like you're comparing it to being mad. So why are parents so cold and they don't want to associate their kids to mental disorders? Why is that happening these days?
I think there are many factors, and there's no particular factor that would answer that question. Now, I want to look at our society, and you've rightly put it, that mental disorders are likened to somebody being actually mad, walking on the streets. You see, that comes with a lot of stigma. That comes with a stigma that is attached to the individual, which families are not willing to look at. Remember, our families always want a perfect. We always look for the ideal. And the ideal is that my children are flourishing in school, they're doing well in exams, they are not ill. And that dimension, therefore, brings in the aspect of parents are not willing to accept some of the realities that happen. Because I always ask the question, when I have malaria, and I go to my father, it's very easy for them to say, hey, go to the hospital and be treated. So biological issues are addressed well, because also if you look at the health system focuses more on biological. There's a lot of research work going on. So it's out there. It's not a shame to visit the doctor. However, it's a shame to visit the mental health institution. So when we look at it in terms of the funnel approach, the society at the top affects our outlook, our experiences of interacting with some of these diseases, our lack of understanding and knowledge, especially within the families. Because I always find it very unfair that children need to understand parents because parents are not understanding. I struggle with that a lot. And when parents come into my room and they're willing to look at the issues critically, let's address the issues for what they are. It is the parent to understand the child. Why should children be forced to understand their children? Why should it be the other way around when someone is struggling with mental health issues? So parents themselves need a lot of education. They need to work around issues of stigma, and also treating mental health is not cheap. It's very expensive. Unless you go to the government hospital where most people would not want to be seen in, it is not cheap. So for me, at the end of the day, there's no excuse for parents not to understand. They need to work through their issues of lack of understanding, lack of knowledge, the stigma attached to mental health disorder, their own perception and their image. Our image is here. So when we have a child with a mental health disorder, society will look at us differently. So there are many factors around it, and those are some of the things that I would want to speak about.
Thank you, Mrs. Florence. That's an insightful thought. So my next question is about, Lennah pointed out speaking out, but then she said that you could reach out to maybe create a WhatsApp group and maybe speak to yourself. But now I'm just slightly moving to a different direction. These days, you see people posting on social media because maybe they haven't found someone to speak to. You find people maybe on Twitter or Facebook speaking about what they're going through. Some of them make fun out of it, but then the advices and the comments people give them it's not a nice thing. So what would you advise us to do? What would you advise in that case?
I think for me, that is where we have safe spaces. Remember, mental illness requires professional help. It doesn't require on the street kind of advice. because clearly they're going to mislead you. There needs to be an understanding of the etiology of the disease. How do we acquire mental health disorders? What are some of the things that perpetuate them? How can you get treatment to get better? So you need someone who really understands that context to be able to help you heal. Remember, at the end of the day, it's about management. Some of these mental disorders will be lifelong. Some of them is about management, and when you manage them well, you're able to live. And so when we're looking at that aspect, it is important to look for a professional. Allow me to say that once again, because a professional is best placed to support you. Remember, mental health requires that you speak from your own experience. Just like the panelists spoke about their experience, you need a safe space. You need somebody who will hear your experience and empathize and not judge you for what has happened. When people don't understand and you put your issues out there, you are bound to be affected. When people say mean things because they don't understand, and you're not strong enough to handle that kind of negative vibes, then you risk going down. But I think they share it because they lack a safe space, and they lack the knowledge that maybe if I go to Jemutai, the professional, she will help me. I wouldn't advise just posting your issues out there because you don't know who you're interacting with. So looking for a safe space, there are different safe spaces. There are counselors, there are psychiatrists, there are clinical people. Remember, all these spaces offers you an opportunity to speak. Just talk from your experience, share how you feel, but also be guided on what are some of the things that you need to do, not being guided, allowing the process to help you understand what you need to do better, process the challenges that have come with it, and finally, find out how you can cope. I think we post out our issues out there because we don't have somewhere. So just put it out there, it is better. Remember, sometimes when we bottle up, it's like a Coke bottle. When you shake a Coke bottle, it starts building gas. And as you continue shaking it, it's explode. So rather than them not exploding themselves, they'd rather just post it out there so that people can do. But I don't know what the safety of those kind of forums are. And I would want to know what would be the reason for doing that actually. The other thing that would be helpful, if you're going to use a WhatsApp group, let it be a WhatsApp group that is one, people with similar issues. For example, if people are struggling with bipolar, that group is for people who are struggling with bipolar and they understand why that group is there as a support group. That one I would advocate for. But just posting it out there is risky. You're also risking your mental health in many ways. There are so many damages that could come from that. The question is, are you willing to take it? Most probably not.
Okay, you've spoken about finding safe space and just letting it out. So, but then let's say me, I am a mental health patient, but then I have this fear in me. Yes, I want to tell out. Yes, I want to speak out. But the same question I posed to Prudence. Yes, I have this. I want to speak out, but I have this fear of being misunderstood, fear of being judged, fear of being looked at. What's wrong with her? Yeah, what would you advise me to do? How do you approach that situation?
Allow me to be very candid about that question. There are only two options in that perspective. You either sink or you swim. What is your choice? A very difficult choice. If you choose to stay in the same space, it means therefore that you will still struggle. Are you willing to continue struggling? If you open up, my question is, by the way, I'm posing it to you, what is the worst that could happen if you opened up? So the capacity to self-process, have a self-talk within yourself and transcend above the fear. Remember also, fear is part of the limbic system. Why do we fear? We are normally always in flee-flight mode. So fear is one of the things. We are always running away. We are always running away from things. We are always in that kind of, so fear becomes part of us. But fear is it's a negative emotion. It's an unhealthy emotion. It's not helping. At the end of the day, the courage needs to come. Developing that courage is an individual aspect. And that is why, therefore, you need a support system. Maybe you have a mother or an aunt. I really appreciate that aunt who came from Nakuru. I could give her a bunch of flowers. If you have someone like that one, you can talk to them about your fears. And coming into a therapy room with that kind of aunt and sitting there is no sin. Even with a therapist, you can walk in with somebody and say, hey, this is my experience. I'm bringing Florence or I'm bringing Jemutai because they feel fearful. And I just want to sit with them so that they feel safe. At the end of the day, Jemutai, to be honest, we have a responsibility to ourselves and to our mental health. And in my sessions, most of the times, I've had friends bring friends. And that is very encouraging. A friend saying, hey, even friends calling for friends. But I also tell the friends, you've called for them, I appreciate, but is there a way that you can come with them and sit with them through the session if they feel safe for you to hear their story? Because it's also a story. It's also something that they're going through. It could be difficult. And so sitting with someone in that space, those are some of the factors that would help. Getting someone that you trust, someone who you know will not judge you for your experience. Again, let's always look for supportive people. Let's not go to thorns. If you go to a thorn, clearly it will prick you. And I always wonder, why do we look for thorns? There are many safe places. Maybe now, many of us are realizing if they hadn't already built, that you will always need people around you. When you need them, they will stand up for you. They will hold up your hand and say, yeah, Jemutai, I'm here. I'm here to support you. Let's go.
Nice, interesting. So, okay, now I've spoken out. Now let me put myself as the person who's to help. How can I help someone without, sometimes you don't even know what to do, what to say to them, but how can I be of help to a person going through such a situation?
One of the most important skills, so we need to start having skills. We need to have social skills. So when I'm talking to Jemutai and Jemutai is talking to me, so for example, Jemutai, how are you? How are you doing? The conversation that is soft, not the conversation that is hard, that is demanding, that is questioning, that is bombarding you. No. Social skills are very important. So how are you doing, Jemutai? So if you are me, maybe even holding your shoulder a little bit to show support, not the holding, the other type of holding, that kind of holding that makes you feel supported and say, hey, Jemutai, that must be hard. So we must develop social skills. Warm, let's be warm to one another. And after that, we also need to know how to listen. In our context, we don't know how to listen. Even before someone has shared, Jemutai, for example, if I'm telling you something, you finish my story. You start telling me how someone else went through that experience. You start telling me about the newspaper, how it was. That's not what that person needs. They need the therapeutic presence. Of course, it's something that is learned, but just the power of presence, of listening and paying attention to that person's experience. Now, one of the things that I want even to ask you, Jemutai, when you're listening, what are you normally listening for? When you're listening to someone, what are you listening for? Are you listening to finish the statement? Are you listening? The barriers that come. You're thinking about, oh, it's time to go for class. Meanwhile, I'm talking to you. So we lack listening skills. And once we gain listening skills, you're able to be available. Listening involves listening to a person's experience. Listening involves listening to a person's feelings. Listening involves listening to a person's thoughts. Listening involves listening to a person's behaviors. Those are the 4 components of listening. And when you're able to listen, you're also bringing in certain skills. You're responding appropriately. You're not responding out of context. So for example, if someone says, by the way, I'm hearing people talking to me. One of the responses from the general population is like, hey, kwani weni mwenda zimu. Already you will feel judged and that conversation will be closed. And once that conversation is closed, then we realize that we don't have safe spaces, even amongst ourselves. So restating, how are we restating? Are we restating appropriately? If you need to challenge me, are you challenging appropriately? Because there are moments that you might need to challenge me, but how are you challenging? We are not fighting each other. For example, if I want to challenge you, Jemutai, I want to invite you to look at how you're contributing to the problem in a safe way. So conversation can be safe. Conversation can also be the most unsafe place. And you realize that we are so unsafe. You look right, you look left, you look at the back, and that is why we die with our issues, because there's no safety, even amongst ourselves. Thank you.
So I'm going to go to the questions asked by the people. So how do you deal with, let's say, a person who, in a situation of a person wants to commit suicide, and then they come to you, but when after talking to them, they still are not convinced. So what do you do in such a situation?
Suicide is very tricky. So they are not convinced about you convincing them not to commit suicide.
Yes, they've opened, you've spoken to them, but they still aren't convinced.
So what are the tools that we need to have when it comes to suicide? If you feel you're not able to support them, it is important to get them to the nearest place, maybe a hospital, a doctor, or to someone. But if you're listening to that person from the lay perspective, it is important to calm them down, because a lot of times they're agitated. Patients of suicide are normally agitated because it's their goal that they're looking at. And most of them sometimes require hospitalization. So a lot of time it could be beyond your competence, other than get them to the next safe available place. It could be a hospital, it could be an adult, someone around to support them. In Strathmore, when I get clients like that, I sit with them. I don't leave the room until I hand them over to the support system. So I call, if it's a parent, and I get your permission. I get for someone who is safe. If it's not your parent, then please tell me who I can hand you over to. The other aspect also is the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist can just decide this person moves from point A to the hospital directly. You see, that way we have taken care of that person's safety. That is, so those are the two parameters that we work around when it comes to suicide. Very complicated, very complex, and very intertwined with many other. Life is very important. Of that individual is worth anything. And sometimes I have the conversation because parents, unfortunately, I am a parent. Unfortunately, we are not safe for our children. And so most of the times I ask, so who do you want me to call? Can I call your mom? No. Mom is always the last. Mom and dad. At least mom is better in terms of mom and dad. But parents are not usually the safe place. I find siblings to be safer. Siblings seem to be safer. So someone will say, please call my brother. Of course, he also has to be of age, because when it comes to hospitalization, the medication, parents have to pay the bill. So at the end of the day, giving them to someone who is very important, someone who will facilitate the next level of process. Because for me, I facilitated the safety. The safety needs to be taken care of in the next level. I might not be there, but if they're not in the hospital, I'm trusting that this person will have to keep watch 24/7 if they're not in the hospital. The other thing that I always do is that I'm also on call. Once I have a patient like that, I am on call 24 hours until I get to know that that patient is in safe hands. And that is why for me, it is very important to have that next person that I can communicate with. And of course, I would have gotten consent from the patient that even if it means us not being friends and me divulging this information that is very important, I need them. We work together for the common good of the client.
Thank you so much. And I pose this question to Lennah. And so, can you heal from depression without medication? Do you think we can heal from depression without undergoing medication?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'll tell you my opinion because I haven't been through depression, but I think you can. In some cases you might, but in other cases you might have to go through the medication, just as Dr. Kigamo mentioned yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, is there a right time to visit a specialist?
I don't think, like, I think any time is okay to visit a specialist. At times, by the way, what I believe is you don't need to go for therapy only when you have mental illnesses. You can decide you just want to go for a session, maybe to learn, so that you'll be aware when you notice you're starting to develop signs. So I don't think there's a specific time at when you feel your illness has reached to a certain point, now you need to go visit a specialist. I actually advocate for if you're capable, visit a therapist. You know, the way we do health checkups regularly, I would advocate for that. Yeah.
I'll pose the same question to Mrs. Florence.
Allow me to comment. Sorry, Jemutai, kindly. This is a burning thing that I want to say. Now, when we look at mental health forms are a continuum. So there's mild, there's mild, and severe. It moves from mild to severe. If you're in the severe on the severe continuum, there's no way you can heal alone. You can only heal alone if you're on the mild, then there's medium, I think medium if I'm not wrong, and then severe. So mild you can, but however, you have to work on the issues that have caused, because for someone to commit suicide, there's something that has happened. And that thing that has happened will not melt away. It has to be worked on for it to reverse the process. So please, if someone is on the severe continuum, no, you cannot do it on your own. On the mild, yes, on the mild spectrum, yes.
Nice. I'm going to allow the participants to pose their questions on their chat. Please start posting your questions on the chat. And then one final question is, what are the available resources, especially for students? What are the available resources for mental health out there?
There are so many mental health resources, honestly. So many. Imagine there's emergency help. So there are many numbers that you can call emergency help, different hospitals. So for example, I know, what is it called, MATA. If you call the emergency help and you need to see someone in emergency, then you get one. There is therapy group, finding therapy. So there are many therapy opportunities over the net. So you can Google and find therapy opportunities. There are so many support groups out there. You just need to know what kind of support group am I looking for. Befrienders is very good for working with support groups. There are international sources. I think they're there, but maybe they might not be available for us. There's online phone counseling, telecounseling, which has now gained a lot of, as a result of Corona, telecounseling is the thing. Then we have psychiatrists, we have psychologists, we have clinical counselors. There's so much help out there, so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Florence. And then Prudence, I have a question for you. From your journey since you were diagnosed with the disorder, what is the thing that you've learned, and what is something that you would like to share with the rest of the world about that condition?
Well, Sorry, just a minute. So what I'd like to let everyone know is if you ask for help, you'll get it. If you ask for help, you'll definitely get it. Because the first time, I told you, the first time I was depressed, I stayed for a while, but I told some close friends and I was taken to a counselor. You know, I think it was Befrienders Kenya. I think so, yeah. I was taken to Befrienders. So my experience was a bit different, but I was like, okay, at least, you know, it's a step, it's at least a step in the right direction. And even if you're bipolar, even if you have borderline personality disorder, ADHD, ODD, everything, every other disorder, you're still a normal person. It's just that your mind is on a different spectrum other than the normal one, but you're as normal as every single person. Sometimes people will make you feel like you're not normal and you deserve to be in an asylum. You do get such people, trust me. I've experienced such people. So it gets better eventually. It gets better even you never understand what's really going on. Because with mental health, you never understand what's going on with yourself. You never understand. And I usually tell people your brain is the most powerful organ of the body because it will literally stop your heart. And it makes you, every other decision you make is based on what your brain tells you. So sometimes you just need to ask for help. If you ask for help, it's always there. You'll get it. For sure, for sure, for sure. You'll get it. It might not come in the form of a psychiatrist or, but you definitely get the help that you need. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prudence. Thank you so much for that. And also, I'm going to go to the question in the chat. Is it possible to cure depression or any mental issue using religion? Do you think it's possible?
Using religion, do you mean praying? Or I don't know what you mean, because let me tell you from experience.
Depressed. Is it possible to just maybe allow my religion and my belief and just allow religion to just work on my issue? Is it possible to get cured using religion?
Well, if you believe that's what will happen, then it will probably happen. No, if that's what you believe, it might as well happen. But I don't believe in it. Like, I don't believe it will help you. You can pray, but we also say God helps those who help themselves, right? So, in as much as you believe in religion, you also need to take a step ahead in all that. But even I have experience about the whole religion thing. I was once told that I'm probably possessed with demons. That's why I felt harm. I was told that I'm possessed with demons. That's why I was fighting with my mother and all that kind of stuff. So this prayer, I don't know. If you believe in it, it might help, but it only goes as far as it can help. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And also, the next question, I could just pose it to anyone. So, how do you know when someone needs help? How do you know when someone needs help? Someone with a mental disorder, how do you know that this person needs help and this is what I'm supposed to do? How can you tell and now start the journey of helping them?
Personally, I think once the biggest red flag to me is when they stop communicating. Like social withdrawal. When that happens, I feel like that's it. Because even for my friends, or this social anxiety, now that's when you know it's real. That's when you know it's really real. And also accompanied with things like and with appetite changes or changing sleep patterns, and even what their content in thinking, because sometimes the conversations you have and you're like, I don't think this person is okay. Yeah, so I think like just how they relate with you is not how they used to relate with you. I think people should be like, okay, I need to check up on this person and find out what's going on. Yeah, that's what I think.
And so, there's that situation where you don't think you're depressed, but you just want to be alone. You just want to be left alone. You want to be away from people for a while. So how do you differentiate that? I just want to be alone. I just need some time and some space, and I am depressed. I don't want people around me. Yeah, how do you differentiate between the two? Anyone can just go.
Allow me to answer that kindly if Prudence is not answering it. There are normally, first of all, there are normally certain parameters that you need to know that mental disorder affects our behavior. Mental disorders affect our feelings. Mental disorders affect our thought processes. Now, for example, let me give an example. If you go through trauma, for example, if a gun was put in your head and it wasn't pulled, then somehow you manage to escape and find your way. That is trauma, direct trauma. The duration, remember sometimes people are hold for 2 days, 3 days, 1 week, 1 month, intensity of that trauma. So it clearly will affect your behavior, clearly will affect the way you feel. So when it comes overwhelmed, guilty, frustrated, over a period of time, there's normally a period of time where certain kind of characteristics in different disorders are seen. Then we have a manual called the DSM-5. The DSM-5 is the diagnostic manual tool for mental disorder. So it has already been clarified and classified how depression will look like. It has already been classified how post-traumatic stress disorder will look like. So there are normally time limits. There are normally behaviors that are observed. And so from that, you're able to know or diagnose. So that's how even psychiatrists diagnose. That's why even I know this person is at this level, this person is at this level. But from the family, for example, there are usually normal behaviors. Let's look at just in the family setting. There are normal behaviors. So if you're a Strathmore student, you have a timetable from Monday to Friday, isn't it? So you need to be meeting your daily 24-hour cycle. Go to class, finish assignments, hand them in on time. You have a social circle, at least you're engaging in an activity, you're meeting people. Now, supposing every day of the week, you are in bed 24/7, every day, for the past 1 month, you have been in bed. If you wake up, the only place you can go beyond is what? Is your bedroom. You don't even go to the kitchen anymore. You don't even shower anymore. You're not even brushing your teeth. Your room is so unkempt. So there's a movement from the normal to the abnormal behaviors. So these normal behaviors need to be pointers that something is not right. Something is not right with so-and-so. So checking in on people, just even having a conversation with someone will give you their level of functionality. How is Florence behaving at home? What is happening in terms of her feelings? Is she able to concentrate? Is she flighty in terms of her behavior? So the behavior, the feelings, and the cognitive will tell you something is wrong here, because there's a diversion from normality. And more so, if it is really affecting their life such that it has stopped, They're not going to class, they're not sleeping, they're not visiting, they're not playing games, they're not even, yeah, clearly something is wrong. So behaviors will normally tell you that something is wrong.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Florence, for answering that question. I have one question here also on the chat. How do I approach my boss and tell them that I have a mental disorder or an issue?
Sorry, I missed that question.
How do I approach my boss and tell them that I have a mental disorder? How will I approach them?
First of all, have they accepted that they're struggling with a mental disorder? One, because if you have not accepted, there are issues of shame. And therefore, when you take it out into the public domain, remember, we always have the private domain and the public domain. So if public domain and those things, you can look at me, but you can't see. You look at Florence, you might not know she has mental disorders. You look at Prudence, you might not know until she discloses. The question is, are they ready to disclose? Because are they happy to disclose? Are they ready to deal with the consequences? Because it's a risk. You might disclose and people laugh at you. You might disclose and people don't understand. Are you ready for that risk? If they're ready for that risk, then it's okay, they can disclose. But a lot of mental organizations are now coming to accept mental health issues and disorders. A lot of organizations, whether the individuals sitting in that organization have adopted mental health at a personal level, because sometimes you're dealing with the individual who is sitting on that seat and not the organization. So if I think for me, it's about you accepting it and being okay with who you are. When you feel safe with yourself, then it doesn't matter what. So what if you think that I have a mental disorder, Jemutai? So what? Does it matter anymore if I'm okay with it? Does it? Should it matter?
But I feel like
It's a question I'm posing.
depends on someone's personality. You know, there are people who wouldn't really care about what anyone would say, but there are others who, whatever little thing is said, it would really affect them. So people are different. So it's kind of different and challenging there because everyone has a different personality.
And that's why I'm saying we have to reach a level of accepting, put personality aside, put the issue at hand, that I have reached a level whereby I have this issue and I'm not ashamed of it. I have it. It's okay, I have it. It's just like HIV when it came, a lot of stigma. Today, people are okay talking about it because they feel safe and it doesn't matter what you feel. So it requires also sensitivity. So society should also be sensitized on the need to be sensitive on people suffering at a personal level.
Do you think the society needs education, like understanding, so that they can't, you know, now I want to accept myself, I want to do all these things, but the society, there's this, they don't understand what I'm going through, they don't understand the consequences of their actions. So do you think that the society should be educated on this matter?
Prudence is smiling. Let her answer and then I can answer after her. She was smiling. I don't know whether the smile indicated she wanted to share. Prudence, share.
Yes, it did. I honestly think society needs to be educated because there are people who are insensitive about this matter. Mm-hmm. And you might find they're insensitive, and guess what? Soon after, they're also diagnosed with a mental issue. But society, it's, you know, mental health is becoming something that it's really growing because more people are being affected by mental health. More people are being diagnosed with things like ADHD, and for some people, it's even genetic. So your family, like the adults in your family, won't even recognize they have a problem. But you've lived your entire life knowing there's something wrong with my parents. I just don't know what it is. So with mental health education, I think it's really, really important. See, it even helps, like for HIV, just as Mrs. Florence said, it helps. I think it would also help with in the mental health sector if they did the same thing. Yeah.
And allow me to add, when you talk about society and mental health, that's another topic on its own. it is important to look at the disparity that takes many forms when it comes to mental health. One, negative societal perception. Two, there's the issue of discrimination. Even in the health coverage, there's discrimination in terms of mental health. And finally, there's an equal treatment of mental health and physical. So clearly already we are playing on a platform that is not leveled. A lot of times when you look at our news and you look at the mentally ill, what do you see? They're shackled. That's what we see. That is what is portrayed as mental health. And when you look at our mental health system, it is cramped, it is crowded, and sometimes patients are forcefully medicated. So already there's kind of a negative something towards mental health. The government is slow. If you look at the budget, mental health gets a very, very small portion of it. It's forgotten. It's forgotten. So there needs to be champions. Now, psychiatric problems, the other challenge that we're facing from the society, also remain undiagnosed for the bigger part. And so if psychiatric problems are not diagnosed, it means management is also not there. So by the time you're getting to the management and the diagnosis, a lot of times you're in the severe continuum. And that is why we see the shackling of patients, which is very unfortunate because of that. We need to reform the mental health system. So it doesn't just begin with us, it begins from the top. Now, 1 in every 4 is suffering from mental health, especially the most common at the moment is depression and anxiety. That is very common to severe disorders like schizophrenia. Now, in the society, we also have a pervasive culture. That is why families come in. We deny, we keep quiet, and we stigmatize. Those 3 components are not helping in facilitating mental health. We are still in denial. We still deny that mental health exists. And that is why, unfortunately, for Prudence parents, they will tell her those harsh words that were said. Now, in Africa, depression is simply not a thing. One is expected to snap. You just snap out of it. Surely, how do you snap out of a depression? That is the mentality in Africa, that we need to snap. There needs to be a lot of knowledge, attitude, and practice. It needs to change. KAP, knowledge, attitude, and practice needs to change. That has to change. And allow me to just make a comment. I don't know whether I don't know how it will come out, but we also have a proverb that says "Kila soko ikona." What does that mean? What does that mean? The stigma. And it's very normal. We laugh at it. We talk about it without even thinking about it. So yes, so those are some of the factors that for me affect mental ill. And if you look at if you pronounce mental a mad person in your mother tongue, how does it come out? Very strong. You didn't want to be even attached to it. So already you can see how we strongly feel about mental health. I'm very passionate about mental health and the society.
I can clearly see that. So you've mentioned medication, but there's an article I read that there's a high chance of relapse when someone takes these drugs. So is it safe? Is it safe to go down that road? Is it just something within that we have to heal in a different way, maybe counseling and all other things?
I think for any medication to be taken, it has to be approved at the higher level. However, we also have to appreciate that every medication has its own side effects. We have psychiatrists who are specialists in managing. I am not a specialist. Allow me to say that I am a counseling psychologist, and I like working with behavior and making sure that once you come out of the psychiatrist, I am happy to receive you to work on those challenges. But however, I know that when medication is adhered to correctly within the limits and the professionalism of the psychiatrists, they work. However, they have their own side effects as well. So that is something that we really have to be keen to. So for me, if I met a patient who was struggling with mild depression, I work with them before they go for medication. But if you're at the severe level, sorry, I don't work with you. The other thing that I don't work with is if you're not adhering to your medication the way the psychiatrist has recommended, I also don't work with you because you'll drain me, you'll drain the process. We will not achieve anything. So you have to adhere to the psychiatrist, you have to follow the psychiatrist, and then we can work together.
Nice. Interesting. So Prudence, I have a question for you. How do you deal with the PTSD and anxiety? A question from the chat. How do you deal with PTSD and anxiety?
Wow. Therapy. Therapy. And sometimes...
But it is important to understand what is PTSD. PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. And you can only get PTSD after you have gone through a traumatic experience. So like the experience I was talking, somebody putting a gun in your head. Clearly, your system will be overwhelmed with and such that it can't cope with that kind of. And that is why a lot of times you will see intrusive symptoms. So the event is gone, but you feel you can't go out because that intrusive thing is still in there. Honestly, PTSD can't be treated on its own. It doesn't go away. If you really have PTSD, it will not go away. In fact, you attract other mental disorders eventually, and you become quite dysfunctional. I would recommend that someone goes through post-traumatic stress. However, I have a caveat to say, I once experienced an experience that was very difficult for me. I saw a therapist, but I also had the capacity to work on myself. I didn't reach the PTSD level. So if you go through trauma, go debrief that process, at least have 5 sessions. That way, you might not reach the PTSD level. Because remember, sometimes when you're going through that kind of traumatic situation, there could be other things that are still at the back, which will stop you from moving forward towards healing. So if you have already a pre-existing loss issue, if you have a pre-existing trauma issue, if you have a pre-existing, so it's like building, and finally you have a thick layer of many issues, and that can stop you from healing. So if someone goes through trauma, usually I recommend that see a therapist, do a debrief of that incident, and finally it can put you in a better place rather than just going to keep quiet and dying alone. Remember, trauma is in the nervous system, it's not in the event. And that is why long after the event has gone, you still have those symptoms.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Prudence, you were saying something?
Yeah, I was saying you do need therapy. And depending on the extent of the damage, just like you said, if you actually get to PTSD, it will attract other disorders. It will definitely attract other disorders. I got anxiety as a result because I was seeing the person who made me get PTSD, if you understand what I'm saying, and I'd have a panic attack. Just seeing them, like, you see the way I'm looking at you, just seeing them like that, and I'd break down, I'd start hyperventilating. It was, and you're like, okay, I didn't expect this. I thought I was okay. So at that point, you're really not okay. And when you go for therapy and they start now talking about the issue, that's another problem. Unraveling the layers. Because for me, I usually think of it as a child, let's say. I usually think children are very innocent. So you're a child who's wrapped in so many layers of the problems that gave you PTSD. So the minute they start unraveling, you know, the child gets nervous because I'm about to be released into this world and I'm going to go back to the system. So that's what I think of PTSD. So even the therapy, it's hard. It's hard, trust me. It's hard when you have PTSD at going for therapy about it. It's hard, but it's something that you must do. If you want to get better, it's something you must do. And I want to get better. So that's why I was like, you know what? I'd rather have all these layers removed, even though it means going over some very hard areas, but the layers have to go. I can't stay in the layers forever. Like there won't be enough space for me to grow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Mhm. I have
So some of the symptoms that you'll observe when it comes to PTSD, the intrusive thoughts, intrusive memory is so involuntary, such that even if you're sitting in class, you cannot grasp anything. Already you can see that you're starting to suffer. There's a lot of avoidance. So you start even avoiding people, you start avoiding class, you start avoiding. Finally, you get into seclusion. Now, it also alters your thought process. There's a lot of, I'm bad, no one can be trusted, I can't go out there. So, and your mood. So you can see all these components of intrusion, avoidance, alteration of your cognitions, and the arousal will not allow you to sit in class and concentrate. And that is why PTSD is very dangerous. And PTSD is only diagnosed after a traumatic experience. Kindly note that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for Mrs. Florence. Is it true that mental illness has become the new trend whereby normal people attach themselves to certain mental illness such as depression and anxiety? If so, does this have negative consequences for people who actually have these problems? It's like romanticizing you're just sad, but you're telling yourself you're depressed.
Kindly repeat the question. I didn't get it clearly.
Let me just do it in bits. Is it true that mental illness has become the new trend whereby normal people attach themselves to certain illnesses such as depression and anxiety?
I think we just use the terms wrongly. I wonder whether anyone would want to be mentally ill unless clearly you're mentally ill. You know, faking a disease for the sake of faking it. Clearly you're mentally ill, whether knowing it or not. So a lot of times we use the word depression wrongly. We use them wrongly. For me, I think we just use terms wrongly. So it is not a trend. It's the lack of use of appropriate words. So instead of feeling sad, people will say, oh, I feel depressed, without clearly understanding the meaning of that word. So I think that is what is happening. But mental disorders have also been on the increase. They have also been on the rise. Yeah.
So what does this what's the effect of this to the people who actually have these conditions?
What is my opinion on that? I think when we use those terms, it goes back to Jemutai. If you've already accepted and you're working through it, it's not an issue. But if you're still holed up and not ready to come out, then you'll be affected. When people use such terms loosely every day and you're struggling with it in secret, clearly it'll affect you. Whether on the I don't think it might increase on the positive continuum where you're saying, oh, we are many of us in the spectrum. No, I think it brings in a sense of more sadness and more depression and more helplessness in the face of, they become triggers. Every time you hear that word, it becomes a trigger to your own issues that have not been healed. How well can you work around triggers? Because triggers also push us into corners we might not be able to come out of in terms of mental disorders. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And there's this question: how do you let go of people that don't want your help? You're trying to speak to them, you're trying to be there for them, but they don't want help. How do you let go? But then there's also that thing, when I let go, maybe I might feel bad and guilty, but how do you do that in a way that won't affect you also?
Let me talk about it from a professional experience. If you come to therapy and you're not willing to work on your issues, please wait until you are ready and then you come. Because therapy is all about, I'm here, I have a goal to work, I have a goal to achieve, so let's work on it. Therapy does not work when you come and you're not ready to work on your issues. How? Honestly, how?
Mm-hmm.
So even in the family, there is the best that you can try, beyond which there's nothing you can do. By the way, you realize that mental disorder patients or friends, at the end of the day, they drain you. And you realize that sometimes you also start going that drain with them. Is it saving them or saving yourself? You save yourself. It's a very tough decision, because at the end of the day, individuals must own their challenges. It's their responsibility. It's not my responsibility, Jemutai, to own your challenges. I am your support system, and note. And what is the purpose of a support system? Look at a tree that is falling on the side. If it is staked and it refuses to be staked, what happens? If you stake a tree and you're holding it and you're tying it and it keeps falling down and it keeps falling down, you're only a support system, and you can only support to the level that an individual allows. Beyond that, there's nothing you can do. Honestly, there's nothing. Unfortunately, it's so sad, it's so painful. It's like an alcoholic. The day they choose to stop drinking, or the day they choose to choose your support, then that is the day their healing begins. Otherwise, they will always be happy to lie in the ditch.
There's someone who's speaking. There's this thing where lately, a lot of men have been undergoing mental issues, depression, but the thing with them is they can't speak out. So how can men deal with mental illnesses? Because they have this thing where they have to be the providers, they have to be so many things, and they have to perform. How can they just achieve what they're achieving, but also just have their mental health in check? Because for them, they rarely speak, they rarely talk.
We have been cultured, or we have been socialized, especially for the boy child, unfortunately, not to talk about their issues. So even when they are dying, they will not talk.
I think we lost her. I think we lost her. So Lennah or Prudence, how do you think the boy child can be helped in this situation?
We need to keep telling them each and every day that they need to love themselves. Mm-hmm. Because for you to actually speak out, you need to love yourself and understand that speaking out will help you. Yeah. I have a friend, a dear friend, who we were together in this mental health journey. And he never used to love himself. But the minute he started doing so, things were different. So it all goes to love yourself and speak out. Okay, you may have partners who are like, it's toxic of you to talk about yourself. Talk to someone else. If someone doesn't want to listen to you, maybe usifos, like achana na yeye. There's someone somewhere who's ready to listen to you. As I said, if you want help, help will always be there. Just not in the avenue that you think. Because for me, I wanted help. So it's just start by loving yourself. I think that's what's most important. Because just as Ms. Florence said, we've been accustomed to a boy child have kuongea, toxic masculinity. but love yourself. Ukienda kusikiza watu, unajua unaenda kusikiza mtu and that person is actually anaenda kuambia mtu venye hako sawa, but you were suffering alone. So love yourself. Boy child out there, jipende please. Yeah.
Lennah, what's your take on this?
Yeah, first thing is loving yourself, and to add to it, I think we also need to constantly to create a habit of constantly checking on our friends. I don't like these memes that have been going around at team. Hatuwezi shinda tukiulizana how are you, it gets boring. I honestly don't like that because that is how people suffer in silence. I feel like the moment you genuinely ask someone how are you, if they feel the concern, if they are a close friend, they will open up to you. And opening up is not always directly. It will be indirect, but if you are a close friend, if you genuinely are checking up on them, you will notice, Lennah is not fine today. You will notice she's not fine. And when you ask her a bit more, she will open up. So I think men need to feel the concern. There's actually a male friend of mine who told me they want to feel the concern. So when you show them the concern, they will open up one way or the other. But of course, top on the list is loving yourself. Knowing you need help and reaching out to someone. Help will always come your way. Yeah.
And
Depende.
do you think our generation, we always want to seem okay? Tunataka kukaa sisi tuko sawa, we don't have issues, ni nini, and then we are achieving this, we are achieving that, but deep down, we're slowly dying. So adding to your point, I feel like we should just allow ourselves to be honest and be vulnerable, because at the end of the day, we will never achieve perfection. So I think Miss Florence is back. She was saying something.
Sorry, we lost power and everything went out, and that's how I got lost. I can't even remember my
You were saying
train
you've
of
been
thoughts.
you're talking about how we've
Sorry?
been you were talking about how we've been cultured in a way that boy child hafai kuongea.
Yes, they don't talk about their issues, and for us women, we talk, we have chamas, we have friends, we meet everywhere, we are always talking about our issues. And so our mental health, it's better because we talk it out, we laugh it out, we get better. Unfortunately, the boy child has to learn that. They have to learn it. It's not in them. They never saw their fathers doing it, so they didn't learn it. The girl child saw their mothers laughing with other women when they were actually crying at home. So it gave us an opportunity to be better. Generally, women socialize out there and talk about their issues. The boys don't. They have to learn it. So do you allow, do you give yourself permission to talk about your issues within safety, knowing well that no one will judge you, or you struggle with the mental health? At the end of the day, there's always a choice. What do I want? Now that I know that there are safe spaces that I can talk about, can I allow? Giving self permission to do that which is contrary to the grain is very important. But if they don't allow themselves, honestly, Jemutai, there's nothing you can do. And that is why they will be out there in bars drinking, numbing their pain. That is why they'll be violent a lot of times. Whereas you, if you go through a difficult experience, you talk about it, you process it with your friend, by the time you're somewhere, you're better. But then that's why more men are more aggressive, because their issues boil in. They need to learn to allow themselves to get there.
Guys, if you have a question, you can always just unmute yourself and ask. But then there's a question here. It's not always about not opening up. Sometimes you open up, but you get negative responses. How do you move on from there? Because now you try to be out there, but then the people there, they've just been like, how do you move on from that?
It's because where we are going is not safe. I said we are going to thorns. Always thorns will prick everywhere. What is it that takes us to the unsafe? Why can't we look for the safe? If you look for a safe space, you'll get an opportunity to be helped. But if you go into the unsafe zone, clearly you'll struggle. So for me, my advice would be kindly look for safe spaces and be sure they are truly safe. By the way, do you know that counseling is not just about, oh, I have this problem. It's about, Florence, I just want to talk about myself today. I feel this way. Yesterday, this happened. Sometimes it's not just about issues of 1920. No, it's about yesterday, this happened, and I feel this way, and I really feel I need someone to listen to and understand. I just want to talk. That's a safe space. And so for me, I also, if I want to talk, I go to a safe space. I don't look for people who are not safe, because I know unsafe spaces damage us terribly. They damage our ego. They bring down our low self-esteem. They puncture many things, the invisible wounds that we continue to carry in the hands of unsafe people. I think I was done with unsafe spaces. How many years now? About 15 years. I don't do unsafe spaces. I do safe spaces. And that way I'm able to grow because I'm given an opportunity to be. And that goes back to the psychological safe spaces that are offered. And that is why counseling is a good place, because it is safe. Thank you.
But then there's this thing, before you get to that safe space, you must have maybe you don't know where to go. There's that period where, hey, is this safe? Is this not safe? So in that period where yes, I want to get a safe space. So what do you do in that period where you want a safe space, but you haven't found the right safe space for you? So would you just remain in that situation, or just go for counseling?
Is there an opportunity for you to be a safe space for yourself? Because clearly you're left with yourself. Is there an opportunity for you to do safety with yourself? And part of feeling safe is mindful spaces that you can engage in, exercises, doing things that give you pleasure. I'm not talking about going to drink alcohol to numb that problem. No, it's about how can I expand this energy? How can I build the hormones that make me feel good, so that you become a safe space for yourself when you have not yet found the safe spaces.
Okay.
Is it doable, Jemutai? Do you think it's doable to find a safe space safe for ourselves? We even fear ourselves.
I think it's very possible to just find that
We are
safe
toxic
space.
even to ourselves.
Can you hear me?
I was saying we are also very toxic to ourselves. We also continue to harm ourselves in many ways. But if we can find safe spaces within ourselves, I think we would also be in a better place. Before I reach that safe space, as you rightly put it, what do I do in this space of mine? And remember, it's about your thoughts and your feelings. Your thoughts and your feelings, always. These are the two common parameters that either create safety for us or not. How am I thinking? Negative thinking. Negative, 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 negative. Oh, how do I turn that negative to positive? And when I talk about feelings, unsafe feelings, unsafe feelings, unsafe feelings, I'm not even safe for myself. So we also have to learn to find safety for ourselves. And when we do that, then at least we can say we are in the holding pen before we get to that place that we need to do. Or before we get to the treatment place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Florence. I don't know if it's me, but you are breaking some points. Okay, I have this last question, and anyone can just take it. So how do you help and prevent someone, or even yourself, from falling back into depression?
Prudence, take it.
Anyone can first.
I think personally, you need to be busy doing positive things, and most of the times things like abusing drugs, alcohol will fuel you back to depression. Avoid negative energy, avoid toxic environments, because you want what's good for yourself. You see, you want a safe environment, so avoid anything that's unsafe, because if you've had depression, you know how bad it can get and how it's not good for you. Because like for me, my depression will also come with self-harm and suicidal thoughts. So that's not a place someone wants to be. Therefore, just be positive and keep around positive people. And if you're going for counseling, you can do so, but you don't have to do it all the time. Just when you feel like you're overwhelmed, you can now go, just like Mrs. Florence said, just go and you're like, I just want to talk about myself, like it's not talking about everything. You don't, at times I have gone for therapy when I'm okay, and actually just chat with my therapist for like 15 minutes, and then I go back home, because that time we're just checking in just to make sure I'm okay. Just to test, because sometimes I won't tell you I'm not okay. It's going to be up to you, the professional, to figure out, which I think is quite unfair on the end. It's quite unfair, but yeah, it's something that I'm trying to learn about, or rather to change. But I just think you just need to be positive and surround yourself with good energy. In school, I only talk to specific people because they're the people who help me. They've come to visit me during my hospital visits. So, because I don't see the need of talking to other people who will bring down my energy. So, they're positive and they're good for me. Therefore, I stick with them. Things at home are a bit toxic for me. I left and went to look for a safer environment. Because you can't stay in a place that's toxic and expect to be okay. You can't live near a sewage and expect, oh, I'll be breathing in fresh air. That's not how it works. If you want fresh air, you'll have to move to a cleaner place, right? So that's basically what I think. Yeah.
Well done, Prudence. Well done. Well done for the realization that when you talk to these specific people, they're the people who bring you up, and therefore intentionally avoiding the other people who are going to tear you down. That in itself means that you have a support system. And when you have a support system that stands by you, that is able to journey with you, what a beautiful place to be. Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
I would also want to hear Miss Lennah's thought about this. Lennah.
I agree with her. You need to let go, because now you're trying not to relapse. You need to let go of what led you to depression. You need to let go of the triggers. You need to generally keep a distance to notice what was triggering you to depression, what led you to depression, and leave these things. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And one last question. So during this period, we're still in school, there's still COVID. How do we improve our mental wellness? I'll start with you, Lennah, because you're still speaking.
So how do we improve our mental wellness? We're expected to keep up with school. We're expected to, I think some of us are still trying, personally, I'm still trying to cope with this whole idea of online learning. So I think taking one day at a time. What you're supposed to do now, do it. Don't crowd your mind with so many things. What you're supposed to do now, do it. And if you feel it's too much for you, it's not a must. Leave it for probably some other time when you feel you're better equipped to cope with it. Yeah. Take one day live each day as it comes. Yeah.
Take each day at a time. Miss Prudence?
I think that it's, taking a day at a time, just like Miss Lennah said. But what I have done myself, because this time has been very, very difficult for me, very difficult, because I can tell you that my trigger is my family. My family is my trigger, especially my mother and my stepdad. They're my trigger. And these are people I'm living with, people I'm seeing every day, people I'm seeing when I wake up and before I go to sleep. And it was brought up during therapy that I'm the problem. It was, sorry, they're the problem, sorry. I brought it up once. And that was supposed to be changed. But as it's hard to change someone. It's really hard. You may be told, yeah, you can change someone, I don't know what, but that's not true. Old habits die hard. So even if you try to change someone, their behaviors will still pop up at some point. So support system. My friends are my biggest support system. Biggest. Like, for me, I don't care what my family says, but what my friends say, it goes to my heart. It really goes to my heart. And because they were there for me when my family wasn't. Yet people always tell you your family will always be there for you. That's a lie. Okay, for me, that's a lie. My friends are there. They are my support system. So if you're lucky enough to have your family as your support system, then that's good for you. But take a day at a time. If it gets hard, reach out to your support system and go do something. Go for a walk, go hiking, go for lunch, just do something with them at least, even if it's just a day, like even 2-3 hours, you'll feel so much better and your perspective about your situation at the time will just be different. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Prudence. Mrs. Florence?
Let me clarify two things. One, we can never change anyone. I don't know where that perspective came from. Unless they choose to change, we can never change someone. Number two, functional families stand with one of their own. Dysfunctional families don't stand with their own. And so maybe I am not touching Prudence's family, but I want to say that family ideally should support their own. That is where we fall back onto. So, because if something happens to you in Strathmore, we don't ask for friends, we ask for your family. But functional families vis-a-vis dysfunctional families. So it is for each one of us to put our families. Is our family functional or is it dysfunctional? Number two, just to say that, number three, all happy families are alike. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Each dysfunctional family is dysfunctional in its own way. So in happy families or in functional families, you'll find warmth, parental warmth, you'll find support, you'll find understanding, you'll find all those components that contribute to your well-being. But in our dysfunctional families, you'll find the opposite. All the thorns will be there. And so you cannot thrive. And therefore, sometimes it's easier to find support outside. And so this is a challenge also to the society. Where, for my child, am I a support system or not? Am I a thorn to them or am I that encouraging? So it's a challenge to families to come to that knowledge and that awareness and to hear what their children want and what their children need. Now, in terms of coping with this corona, The 8 dimensions need to be taken care of. The 8 dimensions of wellness. I can't remember them offhand, but I know we have 8 components. So our spiritual, our financial, our emotional, our cognitive, all these components needs to be managed. And finally, taking care of yourself, taking care of your cognitive, taking care of your emotions, and taking care of your behavior. When you understand these components, then you're able to survive. And at the end of the day, we need certain parameters of resilience, bouncing back when things are difficult. We need components of resilience within us to bounce back, so that it's not all the time that we are being squashed with the world. If we allow the world to sit on us, clearly we will not get up. It is us to sit on the world. And that way you're able to manage. Thank you.
It is us to sit on the world. That's something I'm taking today. So before we almost come to an end, what's your parting shot before we close this session? What would you like to tell us? What would you like to tell everyone?
Life is challenging, and the challenge can come from whichever dimension. You don't choose. You don't choose whether it will come from you in terms of your health. You don't, of course, there are certain, when we eat too much and you become obese, of course, those factors can come. But I'm saying generally, life challenges come not because we choose. How ready am I to deal with them, to work through them as they come? Being open, knowing that whatever comes, I'm in a good place cognitively, I am in a good place emotionally, and I'm able to work with the issues that come. Mental health, no one chooses. Of course, environment contributes, some of our experiences contribute to our mental health, but when I find myself there, what do I need to do to get better? A lot of time, one of our best response is denial. Our best response is to fight it. You can't fight mental health in the way that by denying it. Acceptance, components of acceptance and working through it. We have to separate. Acceptance does not mean I am okay with this illness. I might not be okay with it, but I am okay now with the fact that I have it and I have to do something about it. I'm not ashamed about it. I am not denying it. So can we take charge of our mental health? Can we just realize that the world is not as safe? It's not free from challenges. There are ups and downs. And so one of the things that I have embraced in life, when I am up, I enjoy it to the maximum. When I am also down, I enjoy it to the maximum and find meaningful living. And so life is life. Life is what it is. Thank you.
Victoria, your hand is up. You can just unmute yourself. Yeah.
Okay, hi. I had a question, and I don't know if it was addressed, maybe I missed it, but okay, again, everyone has challenges in life, and it's a fact. So how do you get to the point where you're going through things and you keep telling yourself that, like, again, it's gonna go away, you're gonna be fine. You don't want it to look like denial, because again, you have some good days, and then some days are just down in the trenches and everything. So how do you distinguish that situation?
Anyone can take it.
I think if I heard correctly that time, whenever you're going down, like it's really serious, you can't do the bare minimum. Bare minimum, like clean yourself, you can't do that. You don't even eat. The only movement you make is from your bed to the bathroom and back. You stay in bed, you don't even open your curtains, you don't even change out of your clothes, you don't shower. That's when it's really bad. And now someone, even if it's a friend, and explain to them what's going on with you, because we all have bad days, and sometimes you're so stressed by life, and it's just you feel like enyewe hapa me think nimechoka tu, but when you can barely do the bare minimum, that's when it's really serious and you need to at least reach out to someone.
Thank you, Prudence. Problems don't go away. You can't wish away problems. Can we develop problem-solving skills in areas where we need to solve problems? Because if we don't take charge or if we don't take responsibility, then the problems sit on us, so to speak. But when we develop skills of working through them as they come, working through them, and if you're not able to work through them alone, finding someone who can support you to work through them successfully. And note the word is working through our challenges or our problems successfully, not unsuccessfully. Because when we're unsuccessful, then it means we are failures. So other cognitive dimensions start taking over. So can we develop problem-solving skills? I don't know whether, Victoria, that would be a helpful aspect of developing problem-solving skills with our problems.
Yeah, I think it is. It's in some way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prudence and Mrs. Florence. We were on our parting shot, so it was Prudence. Prudence, do you have anything to say before we wrap it up? Or Lennah, anyone can just go first. What's your parting shot?
Yeah, so Mrs. Florence has really emphasized, and also Prudence, they've really emphasized on the need of a support system. And we need to realize this support system doesn't come at now you wake up one day you have a support system. We need to, it's high time we invested in our friends. It's high time we invested in genuine friendships. It's high time we invested in spending time in our family members if you're in good terms with them. No, we need to invest in these relationships so that when we need them, they'll form a strong support system for us. Yeah.
Asante sana. Thank you so much for that. And how can people get you if you don't mind? Maybe if someone wants to, maybe your social media.
Oh, okay. Currently, I'm not on social media, but you can get me on my email, lennah.kinoti@strathmore.edu.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How about you? How about you, Prudence?
My parting shot would be, this world can be cruel, and that's not anything that can be changed. So take it in stride. Yeah, you'll always, there's no perfect life, there's no perfect anything. Take it in stride. Just as Miss Florence said, good days, bad days, enjoy them.
Mm-hmm.
And build a support system. Because they'll be there for you, and especially when you really, really need them, they'll be there. And protect yourself from negative energy. Like if you feel something is negative, it's toxic to you, achana nayo. Like leave it alone. You don't need it. You really don't need it, because you're trying to move on from whatever place you are stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So if something is toxic, leave it. If something is negative, leave it. And sometimes meditating helps. It can be a challenge to meditate, but it does help. So yeah, you can do a bit of meditation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, actually, there was a question on meditation. how it works and how one can use it to just improve their mental well-being. Can you maybe just talk about it kidogo?
When I was going for therapy, my therapist was really emphasizing on meditation because one, it calms you down and you're able now to think rationally. If you're in a situation where you don't know what to think, you're able to think rationally. For me, when I meditate, I imagine myself in an empty room without anything, just me seated and doing deep breaths and not thinking about anything. So it's just like you're chilling in an empty room without thinking of anything, just yourself breathing. It's like you're basically doing breathing exercises, but in real sense you're also calming yourself down and slowing your brain down because your brain is probably moving so fast. And it also helps when you can't sleep. Meditation helps. Yeah, that's what I've learned so far. Yeah.
Asante sana for sharing that. And how can someone find you? Maybe your social media, if you want to be found.
I'll write my email and my Instagram. So if someone wants to find me, they can find me there.
Thank you so much. Do you have any other thing to add to Mrs. Florence? Maybe if I would want to book a counseling session with you, how will I find you?
My contacts are on the chart, 0793-380-485, and we also work with Dr. Lucy Muturi, 0724-255-169. It's just about calling, and then we schedule a session because I work with a diary system. So you might call me today and find that my diary is full, so I'll give you the next available slot. However, when it's crisis, I attend to it immediately. Yeah, so the phone, that is how we get our clients.
Okay, so thank you so much for your time. And I want to thank the participants for joining into this session. Our time is almost up. I would love to thank everyone, but most especially I want to thank our guests, Mrs. Florence, Prudence, and Lennah, for creating time just to talk about these things, because we want to know, but we don't know where to get the resources. We don't know so many things. So we need people like you to come and we need people like you to just come and share your thoughts, your experiences. What should we do? So thank you so much for creating time to just join into this session. Asante sana.
And yet, Jemutai, ignorance is not bliss, and it's because of ignorance that we keep suffering over and over again. Can we move out of ignorance and get to a place of, I know I can get this resource? Even if you don't know, you can always ask. You can always ask someone. The administration at Strathmore is very huge, it's very large. There's the doctors, there are the administrators. So there's always room.
We've lost her. It's only on my end. I think she's okay. So can you guys hear me? What I've learned today is just loving yourself is the main thing. Loving yourself, and if you're going through something, just seek people, because people are there to help. Maybe they just they're not yet approached, but people are there. Also, be kind to you. That's something that I usually use. Be kind to yourself, be kind to your mind, and above everything else, just love yourself. One thing from Mrs. Florence, we shouldn't allow the world to sit on us, we sit on the world. So no matter the challenges we go through, no matter what the life throws to us, we just have to sit on it and be like, you're not gonna bring me down. So thank you so much for listening and joining into this session. And I would want to wish everyone a lovely night. Can you guys hear me? I'm not sure.
Yes, you can.
Oh, okay. Would love to wish you a lovely night. Asante sana.
Same to you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Wow.